When I'm interviewing candidates, one of the questions I will almost always ask is, if you're proposing a case study or if you're addressing a different challenge, how would you do this differently if you had half the time or twice as much time? And the reality is that in some cases you can't do that work in half the time or in twice as much time, or you're making trade-offs that just aren't effective. But what I want to understand in having that conversation is, how do you think about the core of the research that you're trying to do? And how would you preserve the core of that if you were to scale the research up or down, or to embrace different constraints? The reason that I want to see that kind of thinking in your portfolio is because if I just see the what you did or how you did it, I may be a bit confused without understanding that narrative of what was the situation as it was presented to you. How did you think about turning that into a set of research questions? How did that shape the approach that you took and ultimately like what you did? And so understanding, perhaps you had someone who was prescriptive about the method. So you had to launch a survey. If you can put that story together and say, the stakeholders that I was working with, whomever they were, decided that we were going to run a survey, and my job was to make sure that we were asking the right questions so that we could learn the right things. When we have a conversation in the interview, or when I talk to you about your portfolio, I'm not going to challenge you on the survey itself and sort of be frustrated because that was the wrong approach. Instead, we can have a conversation about, given that that was a constraint that you were working with, how you ended up approaching the work. We can probably have a separate conversation about power and agency, and I can dig into sort of what was the situation around that work and how you felt like you could or couldn't push back on the team or the stakeholders to propose other methods. Some cases, that's not something you can deal with, and that's a conversation for a different day.